Hello, everybody. I'm Margot Mecca, programmer of Festival dei Popoli, and I'm here today to introduce you Catarina Mourão, the director of E MAURIZIO, a film that is part of the medium-length competition of the 61st edition of Festival dei Popoli. Hello, Catarina. Welcome to Festival dei Popoli.
Hello, thank you. Very happy to be here online. Would be nicer to be live, but well.
Yeah, we will prefer to. Just to start, I would like to ask you, how did you discover the story of Anna and the story of Maurizio, and when did you decide to make a film about it?
Okay, so I knew Anna as an artist for some time. I really didn't know much about her work, but I started going to her workshop and her atelier where she worked, and I started noticing that she was doing a lot of things with old photographs, old family photographs, and working, transforming and appropriating herself of old family archives and making them into her own art. And I started questioning her about this process, and that's where she started telling me about her story, about the discovery of this book of her great uncle Maurizio Piccicelli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the word well, which means fish in the sky, something like that. Anyway, I must say Anna is a very reserved person, so it took a while to start unveiling the different layers of her life and her discoveries. But as soon as she started talking about her uncle, she really opened up, and it was like she was telling her own story, which was bizarre for me. And slowly I understood many other layers, like the fact that she's Buddhist. So suddenly this idea of her becoming this strong identification with her uncle became something, it became even stronger in view of her belief in reincarnation and all these things. Anyway, maybe I'm not having an organized speech.
You're answering.
But the way I started discovering the story was obviously through her and through her art, and suddenly her art opened the doors to her own life and the life of her ancestors.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start filming with her?
And there was going to be a big exhibition of Anna's work. I mean, Anna had done a lot of, was a quite well-known artist in the 1980s, the last century. Mm-hmm. And she suddenly disappeared. No one knew what she was doing. And now she was finally going to have a very big exhibition with work for nearly 30 years of work. But because of COVID, the exhibition hasn't opened. So the idea of the film, because I was first contacted to do this film and I didn't know Anna so well, and I wasn't sure I would make a film about her, because just to make a film about a creative process, I would have to feel connected to it in a more narrative, dramatic way, and to try and find the right form. And it was when I discovered the origin of her new work and all this link to her own personal life, and also to the discovery of her sexual identity and all this, that it made sense for me to start filming. So we started filming actually in 2018, end of 2017. And what's interesting is that, films sometimes go this way, is that the first scene we shot is the last scene of the film. It's when she becomes a Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
But it is the end and the beginning of a journey. So life is cyclical. So.
Yeah. And my second question is that Anna Maurizio, as you well said, tells Anna's journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance too, and this story is mirrored in the story of her ancestor. And Anna, as an artist, as you mentioned, builds this relation with her ancestor also through her artistic research. So I was wondering, how did you build this dialogue with Anna and her artistic creation and your cinematic practice? How was your exchange between your documentary filmmaking and her visual practice?
Sometimes I think the film is not really showing so well her artistic practice. But I think nowadays for her, her artistic practice is very much mixed to her personal life. She can't separate her life from her artistic practice. And the way that was obviously, it's always a question when you're making a film about an artist or on the work of an artist, is where your voice as an artist fits in. So you have to find a kind of a common territory where something new. So that's why at the end I kind of felt she would be also the author of the film in some sense, because she is also participating in the building of the film. The way I mean, my role was really to kind of establish a way to navigate between the life of the uncle, her own life, and trying that these two dimensions kind of built on each other without being redundant to each other, and also to try and how can I put it? I think I saw myself more as a navigator between these different documents and these findings, and I suppose I'm really into my previous works lately are very much connected to family archives and what you discover about your own reality and how you how memory works. You know, this is a big theme. I think lots of people are working on the subject of memory, but how constructed and how fictionalized memory is. And at the end of the day, I think this film is also touching on these ideas of how much Anna used her uncle also as an excuse for her to find herself. I mean, we can see this in many ways. It could be something, I mean, there's an effabulation, of course, also of her.
Yes, because Anna, what she finds in Maurizio is her roots, a sort of legitimation of her way of being. So she finds somebody in the past that authorizes her to be as she is nowadays. And I think in what...
No, I was just thinking, I just going to say it's exactly that. But then again, we have to think that it's different to travel and be a traveler nowadays than it was in the beginning of the 20th century. So that the film also, for me, it is showing, but also questioning exoticism and how we deal with these this idea of discovering yourself through traveling and the question of the others. I mean, how valid is that nowadays?
Totally, yes, totally. And what I think it's interesting is that how do you build this connection between Anna's story and her ancestor? Because finally, you put together different times, different places, and also different materials. I heard an interview of you in Lisboa talking about palimpsest. That is also a word that Anna uses in relation to her work. So I would like to ask you, how did you construct this palimpsest and this sort of circular bond between her and the ancestor and these different times and spaces?
I think, you know, film is really, amazing media to do this kind of thing, because I mean, a palimpsest is something where you have different layers, and you dig in and you see what you want to see, a bit like when you're excavating an archaeological site. What do you show and how do you interpret your findings? And film has this great capacity of with editing, you can make different times coexist, and you can make I mean, you can play a lot with time, and I think film is also a great way to play with archives and making archives alive. And I think this palimpsest quality to Anna's work, which I kind of appropriated myself and used it in the film, at the end is a lot about the nature of editing. And when you edit stories which are using documents and testimonies, and how you try to play with this kind of overlay in the editing. I mean, for me, it felt quite organic, the way I mean, that was my concern. I didn't want it, we're with Anna, then we go with the uncle, and then we're somewhere else. I mean, I didn't want to that it seemed too artificial, so I had to really find something organic about it. And I think what also helped was coincidences. There are many coincidences in the film. The fact that they were born the same day, the fact that Anna felt so identified with certain photographs for her uncle, the fact that Anna looks kind of masculine in the way her body language and the way she dresses, all this kind of, I mean, it's almost like sentences that rhyme, like a poem. So I tried to build it like this way. I mean, at the same time, I was kind of worried that people would understand the story, because it's kind of a complicated story. But some things I preferred not to explain too much, because that would you know, disturb the organicity of how things appear in the screen. I don't know if this is clear.
No. Thank you, Catarina, for your generosity talking about the film. And I'm sure the audience will also really appreciate what you just told us about the film. And so thank you so much. And thank you for being part of Festival dei Popoli.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.